Welcome to the Sleeping Barber Podcast.
You heard it. He said he's going to come back, right? You heard that.
He even said it after the recording too.
He did. He said it twice.
It's going to be great.
Post fun.
We'll get him, I was just going to say, we'll get him a permanent chair that we can have.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
What an awesome guy.
Oh, man. Yeah, that was such a great conversation. It almost felt like we were like in a marketing bar of some sort. We're just like shooting the shit, so to speak. Just very casually. Really loved the conversation. And
Yeah.
I don't know, you probably saw like we went down a few rabbit holes there, but at the same time, it's just like it comes into your head in that moment. You're like, I gotta ask him this. I gotta ask him this.
Honestly, when I was doing the prep for this and I'm looking at his LinkedIn profile, I'm like, he's working here. He's working here. I'm like, how many fucking companies is this guy running?
It's like from 2020, it's from 2015 to present, 2020 to present. It's like, what are you doing, man?
I'm like, honestly, I got lots to learn from him. Yeah. Anyway, that was so great. There's so much. I mean, from a startup perspective, even like he's run so many of them. He's started a lot of companies, and having him talk about the brand stuff in the context of startup, like it is in my experience, it's been very foreign for people to buy into that because they see a number on a spreadsheet. And so if ever there was a place where you have spreadsheet marketing, it seems to me like that's the world.
But it's funny because like I feel that is also a natural place to have that skepticism as well, right?
Sure.
Like it's like we know we launched this product and we're enjoying some great return. It shouldn't be more. It should always be less.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where I could see why startups maybe are a little bit more reluctant because they may think we don't have to worry about this until we're 5 or 10 years into our company to really start thinking long term. Instead of saying, well, actually, from 0 to 10, that 10 is now thinking long term.
Yeah.
So instead of thinking of it in a point in time where now I can actually, do this, which I can appreciate. Again, spreadsheet ninjas, like you're going from rounds of funding constantly, and it's a lot of pressure to make sure investors are bought in, and you want to make sure that you're showing it
is like the ultimate short-term environment.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. The other part that crept in my mind when we were talking about Tracksuit is like, well, even just future demand. You can't rely on last click if you're going to believe in that path, which is great that you have tools like Tracksuit.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, you can't. Yeah. Like there's just no possible way that you could ever evaluate effectively CAC if you don't combine all those other metrics in it.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. And I think what I love most about Tracksuit, it's completely accessible, right? Like a lot of companies could get into it. And he even talked about enterprises. So if you think about some of these larger companies, they may just be tracking their, I'm just going to pick on WestJet, for example, but like you're just tracking WestJet overall. But WestJet has multiple products, right? There's a credit card product. There's like, the actual, the seat selection, the routes. It's like so many different things. Well, how are you measuring those things, for example? Or CPG, probably if you want to look at more from a product perspective, like all the various ones. Anyways, I just think it's another way of making sure as a marketer, you can have the tools that you need to make informed decisions on spend, on things that you need to make sure that you're elevating, trying to create more of that affinity, the awareness, whatever. But it's all rooted back down in effectiveness, right? And if there's one thing that we're trying to do with this podcast is show people the way into this stream of effectiveness, right? The principles that we talk about often, the tools that you can do to help answer some of those questions leadership may be asking. Tracksuit's one of those ones where, again, like you can likely lean into to help start telling more stories internally.
Yeah. The other, we were just mentioning effectiveness. The thing, who do we talk to about this?
Who haven't we talked to?
Yeah, true. That's a good point. But Colin Powell, and it's funny because I think most marketers, if you ask them, or even CEOs that are asked of their marketers, what would you want your marketing team to do? And same thing for marketing teams. What would you want to deliver. And I think everybody would go, yeah, we want to be effective.
Yeah.
We want to produce a result for the company. And I don't think anybody's going to disagree that producing a result for the company is a bad thing, like sales, market share, profitability. Somewhere in that though, that we can all agree on that. And so we can agree on what the outcome of effectiveness is. But I think what's missing is just an awareness of what the mechanics are of getting to that state of effectiveness without having to trial and error all the time.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, it's avoiding that trial and error. I'm all for testing. I'm all for making sure that, but if there's things that have been tested time and time again, and there's substantial data to support that, just do it this way, just do it that way. Like, it's okay. And that's why these principles are in place to help steer us down a path closer to driving, those business outcomes or the commercial outcomes, like James. And I really love that definition, by the way. It's like, what was it? Effectiveness drives commercial results. That's all it is.
Yeah.
And I think when you think about it that way, and then backing up your marketing strategies around and rooting them in, marketing effectiveness principles, is your least path of resistance to getting to those outcomes, those desired outcomes. So why not invest your time in that space? Why not really, find the ones that are really applicable for you? But I struggle when, sometimes we'll talk to other practitioners, or dare I call so-called practitioners in our space, and all of this is like completely, over their head. I'm not saying people should, you should know everything.
Yeah. That's right. Well, even what I thought was refreshing about James' approach is 60-40, but I mean, you've got 2 jobs to do.
Yeah.
It's 50, split your budget. But 50-50 is good rule of thumb to start. I like that.
Yes.
Like, it doesn't have to be, I know exactly this. Then you don't have to one up each other. And who's the smartest guy in the room? Who remembers the p-value of that stat? You know what I mean? Like, that's a whole thing.
Totally.
So yeah, just that we have an understanding of what the principles are is, I think, super helpful.
I even liked his acute wear out call out. I thought that was an interesting way of putting it. It also goes back to our conversation, our heated conversation, but Dan got really heated on the topic of frequency, right?
Yeah. Well, I thought about you too, because remember when we were talking to Nicole and you're like, you asked that great question about, like, if you have $2, spend it on, how do you spend that on reaching the 2 houses? Yeah.
It's just one of those things where, like, you have to make sure, high frequency isn't necessary. Yes, can it be a byproduct of reach? Yes, of course. However, you shouldn't be solving for frequency. You should be solving for reach, and try to attract as many people as possible instead. And I think that's, again, acute wear out is, if you've bought all the time slots in one, Super Bowl game or one NFL game, like,
you got a lot of money, is what that tells me.
That's fair enough.
If you're buying all the Super Bowl spots.
That's fair. I mean, good on you. You're blocking other competitors out, so maybe there's something there.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know.
There's one part, we were talking about the creative effectiveness ladder, and then we talked about courage, and then
getting approval to be courageous.
Although it's not that far from the truth. So there was something that we didn't get into talking about. I just did a quick search because I don't remember. I don't want you to think I remembered what this is, but there was a component of the creative effectiveness ladder I thought was interesting, and we didn't really get into that question.
No.
But creative commitment is a score based on 3 inputs. So the campaign budget in terms of media spend, the time it stays in market, and the number of channels it runs across. So they actually have like a measure for courage, if you want to think of it that way.
Huh. Okay.
Which I think is super interesting. And I remember there being, I don't have the study in front of me, but I remember there being like ways to evaluate that, and then campaigns that did really well versus campaigns that didn't have a creative commitment score, or high versus low, and all that kind of stuff. But I think in a way, it kind of is courage. Like, you can get approval for courage.
Yeah.
And then using the creative commitment ladder, it also, or the creative effectiveness ladder, like if you know what James was talking about, if you know you're going for fame and iconic status, then it's kind of like you're getting approval for Courage, because you're saying we believe in this platform so much that we want to invest in it for a few years. And by the way, here's what the investment looks like over a period of time.
Yep.
And maybe that's where those kinds of campaigns, like the Dove Real Beauty campaign, that's maybe where they come from. They get a sense early on that the campaign is going to do really well, and then they get creative commitment to be able to build that iconic status over a period of years and decades even.
Yeah. Because it's always there.
Yeah. Like you can iterate off of each version, but it's the platform.
Yeah. So it's like, creating that one platform that you're committing to for 10 years or whatever the time frame is.
Yeah.
And then continuing to build against that over time. You know?
Yeah.
The funny thing is, again, I know I asked a question just around, ads wearing out versus wearing in, et cetera. You do see this often though, which again goes back to question some of the marketing effectiveness principles that we're kind of deeply rooted in. We should probably just do an episode and rounding all the principles together, by the way. I've been thinking about that a few times to have like one source of truth. But anyways, I digress. You have companies creating net new campaigns every year.
Yeah.
And while you would argue the fact that you're in market, you're still able to build that mental availability, but you'll never get to fame if you're not sticking to one, what's it called? One
platform.
One platform instead, and then iterating off of that, because it could be, you're just kind of going into different directions every year, creating net new creative, and you're going through those costs instead of saying, we're leaning into this. We're going to run the creative for a couple years, and we're okay with that because of the principle of ads not wearing out. And then, the refresh in 2 years will be this, or the evolution of that. But no one builds that way.
Yeah, fuck. You know what it just made me think about was like, instead, we blow up the brand, rebrand.
Exactly.
Like there's a better alternative, and you might have just spelled it out, which is like, if you have to do anything, it might be better just to not rebrand, but re-platform. Like keep the brand, but re-platform if necessary.
Yeah.
Because destroying the brand equity and the assets you've built up is super dangerous.
Yep.
But you could iterate off of that and have a new platform, which is less dangerous, but also a way to show creative commitment and put a stamp on something.
Yeah. But I don't know if you've ever worked with a client that's ever had just one platform that you're iterating off of. So what can we do differently?
Yeah. Well, maybe this is the 50-50 thing that we're talking about, right? Like,
maybe. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. It's fascinating. It's fascinating when you have these moments with, obviously with incredible thought leaders like James is, and where you can just take a moment and be like, yeah, no, like there has to be a better way for us to do this. And I think the creative effectiveness ladder is a great routing, if you will, framework, call it whatever you want, and just kind of, creating that aspiration, either organizationally or for your marketing team, or like, this is our aim is fame as a marketing team. And this is the platform that we've created over the next 10 years that we're going to iterate against.
Yeah.
And what's the new, and then every year it can be different, but your platform is still the same. So it's the evolution of that, right? So if we pick on a Snickers, which is like, oh my gosh, what
Snickers
was the tagline?
Satisfies?
Snickers satisfied. So based on that, what are we going to build against it? Anyways,
that's good conversation.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was good. There's so many amazing things that he had to say in there. I can't wait to listen to this again, actually, when I'm editing, because there's
me too.
Customer needs.
Yeah, I'm looking forward.
There was another one too, the customer needs thing.
Yes.
With Tracksuit. That was another link that came to my mind. Remember when we had Tony on?
Yep.
Ulwich talking about jobs to be done. That was something that I think he also spoke about, which is if you can find an unmet need and you can deliver that to the customers,
right,
about, I think it was 15% cheaper was his number.
Yep.
Than what is the other solutions are that exist out there that don't serve the need as well.
Yep.
Then you've got a winning product there. And that was something that he talked about too with startups, which is oftentimes they go over they're targeting a segment, like say B2B finance or finance people who work in B2B, but they're not finding out what the unmet need is.
Right.
They're just doing
right.
another product that's kind of the same, and then you end up in this bucket of sameness.
Totally. And then it actually it leads perfectly into the conversation that we have like with Ella, Dr. Ella Ward, when we're talking about like the sea of sameness when you think about packaging and people repeating colors, but you're not actually doing the research behind it. And it's, again, I think every company, every brand has to be somewhat careful on how they approach a lot of this. Of course, you want to root yourself in consumer research as much as possible. I know we keep talking about research. It's this weird thing. But, how do you root yourself in that?
You keep talking about it.
What's new? Never heard of it before.
You keep bringing it up. You're right. I should ask you about that someday.
Yeah. Let me write that down. Anyways, I don't know, man. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy.
But also fun to learn about all this stuff at the same time.
It is. And as practitioners in the field right now, you can't stop learning. You can't stop thinking. And I think that's what makes this field so incredibly dynamic. And I'm just genuinely super excited to be a part of it.
Mm-hmm. Me too. Okay, buddy. Well, great show again today.
You crushed it, buddy.
Energy today.
Thanks, man.
I really loved your vibe today.
I love it.
You're wearing a great shirt. It really brings out the pop in your eyes.
Oh, I appreciate that, man. Jeez, where are we going with this?
I don't know. But speaking of pop, I'm going to pop out of the office and go get some profitability and put it on my dinner plate. So
I like that. I don't think I can top that, but I guess I'll go.
I'm going to carve off a slice of profitability.
My goodness. Now, this is where we have to end it. Like, now we're just becoming loopy.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
All right, man.
Until
Thanks.
next time.
This was great. All right.